I have stood on the Mareth line for 41 years, and my father stood on it before me, and his mother before him, and back along a chain of watchmen that does not break until it disappears into a time when no one living could have told you what the word watchman even meant. We do not measure the line in our own years. We measure it in the thing it was built against. 80,000 years, the records say. 80,000 years since the sky last opened with their light in it, and the wall has stood every single one of them, manned every single one of them, in fair weather and in famine, and in the centuries when men had forgotten almost everything except this, that we keep the watch, and we do not sleep, because once we slept and woke up as something less than ourselves. The morning they came back, the wind off the high plain was cold enough to make the old wound in my shoulder ache, and I remember thinking it was going to be an ordinary day. That is the thing about the days that turn out to matter. They begin the same as all the others. The Mareth line runs for 900 kilometers along the spine of the continent, a rampart of gray composite and buried steel that looks, from the plain below, like a low mountain range that someone made too straight. Most of it is underground. What you see is the watchwork, the towers, the sensor masts, the gun emplacements that have not fired in anger in my lifetime or my father's, the long galleries where men and women like me sit in front of screens and wait for a thing we half believe will never come. The other watchmen joke about it, the way soldiers always joke about the duty they cannot quite take seriously. We called ourselves the Gardener's Welcoming Committee. We said it the way you say a thing to keep from feeling it. But I never quite laughed. My grandmother did not raise me to laugh at the wall. She raised me on the old story, the one we are all raised on, the one the children learn before they can read. She would sit me on the cold stone of the gallery floor, and she would tell me about the tending, in the flat voice you use for the things that are too large to be made pretty, and I would feel the whole weight of 80,000 years settle onto a boy too young to carry it. This is the story. Long ago, when men were new and few and lived close to the ground, the veshaal came. They did not come as conquerors. That is the part the children always miss and the part that matters most. They did not burn the cities because we had no cities. They did not enslave us, not in the way the word means. They studied us, the way a careful man studies a field he intends to keep, and they decided that we were promising stock, clever, adaptable, capable of contentment, and they decided to keep us. So they tended us. They reached into the things that make a man want and they turned the wanting down. They gave us ease. They gave us plenty, the kind of plenty a man does not have to fight for, and they gave us the slow, warm fog of a life with nothing in it that must be done. They made the world soft. They made us soft inside it. And then they withdrew and left their caretaker engines humming under the surface of the world, and went away into the dark between the stars to tend their other gardens, satisfied that they had made of us a placid and grateful and harmless people who would still be sitting where they left us when they chose to come back. For a long time we were. That is the shame at the bottom of the story, the shame my grandmother never tried to soften. For a long time, longer than any of us likes to count, we sat in the warmth they made for us, and we wanted nothing and we did nothing and we were happy, in the small dim way a tended thing is happy. We forgot we had been more than this. We forgot there had ever been a sky we had not been given. And then, and no one can tell you exactly how, because it did not happen in one place or in one year, we began to remember. It started, the historians think, as a discontent without a name, a sourness in the warmth, a man here, a woman there who woke in the night with the feeling that something had been taken from them and could not say what. They were the first watchmen, though they had nothing to watch and no wall to watch from. They were only people who had begun, against the whole weight of the world the veshaal had built, to want again, to want the hard thing, to want the thing they had to fight for. It took us thousands of years to break the tending. I will not pretend the story is clean. We tore down the caretaker engines with our own hands, and many of us died in the tearing, and many more of us fought to keep them, because there were always those who loved the warm, dim life and did not want to be woken from it. There was a long age the records simply call the cold, the centuries after we shut the engines off, when the plenty stopped flowing and we had to learn, all over again, how to be a people who feed themselves and defend themselves and remember. We learned. That is the whole of it, and it is everything. We learned. And the first thing we built, the very first thing, before the cities, before the fleet, before any of the rest of it, was the wall. Because we knew. From the moment we understood what had been done to us, we understood the other half of it too, that they would come back. The gardeners always come back to the garden. And we swore, not in one voice but in 10,000 generations of voices, each one teaching the next, that when they came back they would not find a garden. That is why I was on the wall the morning the sky changed. I was in the high gallery of Tower 9, drinking the bitter tea they rationed to the night watch, when the long-range array picked them up. I did not hear an alarm. We do not use alarms on the Mareth line, not for this. An alarm is for surprise, and we have not been surprised by this for 80,000 years. What I heard was a single soft tone, the tone we are all taught as children, the tone that every watchman dreads and waits for in equal measure, and the young officer at the array, Senna, a serious girl of 26 who had been on the wall 3 years and had never expected to hear it, turned around with her face gone the color of the stone. "Contact," she said. Her voice did not shake. We trained the shake out of them. "Deep contact, edge of the system and inbound. Tomas, it's a fleet." I set down the tea. My hand did not shake either, though I am old enough now that I will admit here that I felt the 80,000 years come down on me all at once, the way it had come down when I was a boy on the gallery floor. "How many?" I said. "Resolving." She bent to the array. 11 large hulls, smaller craft in escort still counting. Their drive signature. She stopped. She looked up at me and I saw her understand the way we all understand it eventually, that the story is not a story. "Tomas, the signature matches the archive. It's a clean match. It's them." I had given my life to a wall built against a thing I had more than half decided would never come in my time. I had stood my watches and trained my watchmen, and told the old story to my own grandchildren on the same cold gallery floor, and somewhere underneath it all I had let myself believe, the way every watchman lets himself believe, that the gardeners had forgotten us, that we had outlasted their memory, that the wall would stand forever against a sky that would never fill. The sky was filling. "Sound the line," I said. "All towers, wake the deep batteries. Signal the Crown and the standing fleet. Contact confirmed. Archive match. The stewardship has returned." I heard my own voice, level and old and cert, and I was glad of the 41 years that had made it so. And opened the long channel to command. "Tell them the watchmen send their respects and the day has come." Senna's hands were already moving. The tone went out along 900 kilometers of wall, soft and steady, tower to tower, and I imagined it reaching them all, the men and women on the night watch, the ones asleep in the undergalleries, the ones in the far towers who had laughed about the gardener's welcoming committee, and I imagined the laughter stopping. Then I went out onto the parapet, into the cold wind, to watch the sky. They came slowly. That is the thing I will remember longest, I think, when the rest of it has worn smooth, how slowly they came, and how certain. A war fleet, a raiding force, a people who feared us, would have come fast and tight and ready. The veshaal came the way a landlord comes to a property he has owned so long he has stopped thinking of it as a place where anyone might object. They came in a loose and unworried order, their great hulls catching the light of our sun. Decelerating across days with the leisurely confidence of gardeners arriving at a garden they had planted and left, and never once doubted would be exactly as they remembered it. For 3 days we watched them come, and we made ready. I want to tell you about those 3 days, because they are the heart of what we are, and a man who has not stood the Mareth line cannot know it from the outside. There was no panic. I keep saying that, and I will keep saying it, because it is the thing that mattered most and the thing that is hardest to make a stranger believe. 11 veshaal capital hulls were falling toward our world. the masters who had once reached into our minds and turned us off like lamps, and there was no panic anywhere on the wall, or in the cities, or in the long galleries where the deep batteries woke and stretched after 80,000 years of sleep. There was only the doctrine. There was only the watch, doing the thing the watch had been built and trained and bled across 100,000 generations to do. The crown lit first. I saw it on the morning of the second day, when I came back up to the parapet after a few hours of the thin sleep you get on a war footing. The crown is the ring of orbital platforms that girdles the world, the ones the children draw as a thin gold line across the daytime sky, the ones most of them never think about because they have always been there. That morning they were not a thin gold line. They had turned to face outward, all of them, all the way around the world, and the light off their arrays was a hard white band across the heavens. And I stood on the cold stone with the wind in my old wound, and I understood, in a way I never had before, what we had made. We had made a world that could not be tended. The standing fleet rose on the third day. They had been holding in the high anchorages, the long gray hulls that we build and crew and never speak of as weapons, because we do not like the word, because we know what it is to be on the wrong end of a people who like the word too much. They rose without haste, in the disciplined order we drill into them, and they took their positions between the veshaal and the world, not crowding, not threatening, simply there, the way the wall is there, an answer waiting for a question. From the parapet they were specks of moving light against the band of the crown. I knew the men and women aboard them. I had trained some of them on this very wall. I knew they were not afraid, and I knew that not being afraid had cost them everything that being afraid is supposed to protect, and I loved them for it, in the hard, dry way an old soldier loves the young ones he has spent his life preparing for a day he prayed would never come. The veshaal saw all of it. They must have. They had eyes far better than ours. Their archive of us was 80,000 years deep. They came down through our outer system, and they saw the crown turn to face them, and the standing fleet rise to meet them, and the wall, my wall, the Mareth line and its 9 sisters around the world, light up its deep batteries, and they did a thing I will remember to the end of my days. They did not stop. They came on. Slowly, certainly, in their loose, unworried order, the gardeners came down toward the garden, and I realized, watching the array data scroll across Senna's screens, that they did not believe it. They could not believe it. They had made us. They had reached into the deepest part of what makes a man, and they had turned it down to a contented hum, and in all the long calm of their patient gardening minds, there was simply no room for the idea that the hum had become this. The crown, the fleet, the wall, they read it, I am certain, as some local growth, some weed in the garden, some clever arrangement the stock had cobbled together that would yield to a firm and gentle hand, the way the stock had always yielded. They came on because they were sure. The hail came on the third evening, as the sun was going down over the plain, and the band of the crown was beginning to glow against the darkening sky. It came on the old frequencies, the ones our archives had preserved for 80,000 years against exactly this, and when the translation resolved across the gallery screens, I felt the hair rise on the back of my neck, because it was so gentle. I had expected, I do not know what I had expected, a demand, a threat, the cold voice of an owner. What came instead was warm, it was patient. It was the voice of a man returning to a field he has loved, and it was, in its way, the most terrible thing I have ever heard. Children, it said, we have been a long time away, and we have thought of you often. We return as we promised, to walk among you and to see how you have grown, and to gather what the long season has made ready. Be at ease. There is nothing to fear. We have only ever wished you well. Open your sky to us and let us come down among you as we did in the early days, and you will remember, and you will be glad. It went on. It spoke of the warmth they would bring back, the ease, the plenty, the end of the hard, hungry striving they imagined we had been suffering through in their absence, the way you imagine a child left alone has been suffering. It spoke of the cold they knew about the cold. Somehow, they had watched more of us than we ever knew, and it grieved for us in its gentle, patient way that we had had to live through such hardship. And it promised that the hardship was over now, that the gardeners had come home, that we could lay down the terrible burden of wanting and striving and remembering, and simply be at ease again. Senna had stopped working. The whole gallery had stopped. Up and down the Mareth line, I knew, every watchman who could hear that translation had stopped and was listening, and was feeling the thing I was feeling, which was not fear, and was not even anger, but was something older and colder than both. The deep-bone memory of a people who had once heard a voice exactly that gentle, and had let it turn them off. "Tomas," Senna said quietly, "command is on the long channel. They're asking the wall for its reed." The wall's reed. It is an old protocol, older than the cities. When the gardeners came, every watch station around the world would be asked, before anything else, for its reed. Not its analysis, not its targeting solution, but its reed. The human judgment of the men and women who had given their lives to the watch and knew best of all what we were dealing with. It is the one moment in all our careful disciplined doctrine where we trust a person over a machine. My grandmother had told me about the reed. She had told me that one day a watchman of our line might be asked for it, and that I should think, all my life, about what I would say. I had thought about it all my life. "Tell command," I said. "The wall reads them as exactly what the archive says they are. They are not lying. That is the reed. They mean every word of it. They are not here to destroy us. They are here to tend us. They believe with their whole hearts that they are doing us a kindness." I looked at the gentle, warm words still scrolling across the screen, the patient, loving voice of the thing that had once reached into my distant grandfathers and turned them off, and I felt the 80,000 years stand up straight inside me. And the wall reads that as the most dangerous thing in the sky. A people who wish to enslave us, we could hate cleanly. These wish us well. That is what we have waited 80,000 years to answer. Tell command the wall is ready. There was a silence on the long channel. Then a voice I knew, old Marshal Iveth, who had the world's defense in her hands that night and had given as many years to it as I had, said, in the flat, steady tone we all learn, "Read, received, and logged. The wall's judgment is the world's judgment. Hold your fire, watchmen. We are going to give them the answer, and the answer is not going to be the one they expect, and it is not going to be the one some of your young ones want either. Keep them steady." "Can you keep them steady?" I looked at Senna. I looked at the young faces along the gallery, and I knew that some of them wanted, very badly, to fire, wanted the deep batteries to speak, wanted to burn the gentle, patient owners out of our sky and be done with the 80,000-year wait in one bright moment of release. I understood that want better than they did. I had carried it longer. "I can keep them steady, Marshal," I said. "Steady is the whole of what the wall is. What is the answer?" "The answer," Marshal Iveth said, "is that we are going to let them come down, and we are going to show them. I will tell you now what we showed them, because it is the part of the story that does not get into the songs, and it should. The songs make it sound like a battle. It was not a battle. It was the opposite of a battle. It was the most disciplined thing a people has ever done, and it was harder than any battle, and I am prouder of it than I am of anything in my 41 years on the wall. We let them come down. We opened a corridor for them, a single lane through the standing fleet, down through the crown, down to the high plain 100 kilometers in front of the Mareth line, an old flat ground we had kept clear for 80,000 years for exactly this. We did not lower a single gun. We did not stand down a single platform. We simply opened a door in the middle of everything we had built, and we invited the gardeners to walk through it, and we let them see, every meter of the way, exactly what they were walking through. The first veshaal craft came down at dawn on the 4th day. I was there. I had asked to be there, and because the line knows what our family is and what we are owed, I was given a place on the receiving ground, in the long disciplined rank of watchmen and soldiers and the world's representatives who stood to meet the gardener's return. I had never seen a veshaal except in the archive. I will try to tell you what they are like, though I am no poet, and the truth is they are harder to describe than any beast, because they do not move like a beast, or like a man, or like anything that wants things the way we want them. They are tall, taller than a tall man by half again, and they are slow, and they are smooth. Their bodies are sheathed in a pale, segmented covering, not armor, something grown, the color of old ivory, and they move on many joints with a deliberation that is almost unbearable to watch, like watching a tree decide to bend. Their heads are long and tapering and crowned with a fan of fine sensory fronds that drift and settle as they take in the world. And their eyes, they have many eyes, set in a soft band around the front of the head, each one shuttered behind a slow nictitating lid, so that when they look at you it is like being regarded by a whole calm patient committee at once. They do not speak with their mouths. They hum a deep tonal music that our machines translate, but that you feel in your chest before the words arrive, a sound like a great slow bell heard underwater. The one who came forward to meet us was old. We learned its name later, or the nearest our throats could come to it. Thelethith, a steward of the deep gardens, ancient even by the long reckoning of its kind, one of the very ones who had been present at the settling 80,000 years before. It had been there. It had reached into my grandfather's. It walked down the ramp of its craft onto the high plane of the world it had once tended, and it lifted its long head, and its fronds drifted, and it took us in the rank of us, the wall behind us, the crown overhead, the fleet between it and the stars, and it hummed its gentle greeting, and the machines gave us the words. Children, how you have grown. It meant it kindly. That is the thing I cannot make a stranger understand, the thing that stood the hair up on every one of us in that rank. There was no menace in it. There was pride, a gardener's pride in a hardy crop. It looked at our wall, our crown, our fleet, the whole vast forged machinery of a world that had spent 80,000 years making itself impossible to tend, and it read all of it as growth, as vigor, as the pleasing strength of stock that had done well in its absence. It was glad. It was, in its alien patient way, delighted with us. It had come home to find the garden flourishing, and it could not yet see. It did not have anywhere in its long, calm mind the room to see that the garden had spent every one of those 80,000 years learning how to refuse the gardener. The world's representative stepped forward to meet it. Her name was Adras Senin, and she was an old woman, older than me, and she had the stillness of the deep wall in her, the stillness we train for our whole lives. She did not bow. She did not threaten. She stood in front of the ancient thing that had unmade her ancestors, and she let it finish its gentle greeting, and then she spoke, and her voice went out across the plain and up the long channel to every watch station on the world, and I have heard it in my sleep every night since. We remember you, she said. That is what you need to understand and what I do not think you can. We remember everything. We remember the warmth, and we remember being glad of it, and we remember what we were when we were glad of it. You did not destroy us. You did something we have spent 80,000 years learning to find more unforgivable than destruction. You made us comfortable, and you took away the part of us that minded. You are right that we have grown. We grew out of the thing you made us into, and it nearly killed us. And the climb out of your warm dark was the longest and the coldest and the proudest thing our kind has ever done. And the very first thing we built, when we could finally stand on our own again, before food, before shelter, before anything, was the wall behind me. Do you understand what that means? Before we fed ourselves, we built the answer to you. That is how much we remember. The steward's fronds drifted. Its many eyes shuttered and opened. The machines gave us a sound that I think was confusion, the first crack, the very first in 80,000 years of certainty. You are agitated, it hummed. You have lived too long without our care, and you have forgotten the ease of it. We did not harm you, children. We loved you. We love you still. Lay down this, it gestured, a slow, vast sweep of one many-jointed limb that took in the wall, the crown, the fleet, all of it, this striving, this hardness you have grown in our absence, like a thorn in a soft fruit. We will tend it away. You will remember the warmth, and you will be glad. And there will be no more of this cold remembering that grieves you so. And there it was, the whole of it in the open, in the gardener's own gentle voice. It had heard everything Adrastenin said, the remembering, the climb, the wall, and it had understood not one word of it, because in all its long, patient kindness there was no room for a child that did not wish to be tended. It still believed it could turn us back. It had looked at the impossible thing we had become, and it still believed with its whole heart that it had only to reach in once more and turn the wanting down. That was the moment we showed them. Adrastenin did not give the order to fire. I want that understood now and forever. We did not burn the gardeners out of our sky, though we could have, though some of the young ones on the wall wanted it with a hunger I felt in my own old blood. We did something harder, and the doing of it is the proudest hour of my people. She lifted one hand, and the world answered. It began with the wall. The deep batteries of the Mareth line, the great buried guns that had slept 80,000 years and woken 3 days before, ran out their firing solutions across the morning sky, not as weapons discharged but as light. A careful, disciplined display of every targeting lock the wall held on every hull in the veshaal fleet, painted up into the dawn so that the gardeners could see, plainly, in a language even a creature that thinks in seasons could read, exactly how thoroughly and how long and how patiently they had been held in our sights. Then the 9 sister walls around the world in sequence did the same, so that the whole girdle of the planet lit up in a slow rolling band of locked and waiting fire. Then the crown turned its arrays, all of them, all the way around the world, and showed the gardeners the orbital weight that had been facing them since the second day. Then the standing fleet, one hull at a time, ran out its own solutions, so that every gray ship between the veshaal and the stars stood revealed as the answer it had always been. And then, this is the part I cannot tell without my voice going, then it stopped. All of it. At a single gesture from an old woman on a high plane, the entire forged might of a world that had spent 80,000 years preparing for this exact morning powered down its solutions and stood quiet, and let the silence say the rest. Because that was the answer, not the fire, the choice not to use it. The steward Thelethith stood in the sudden quiet, and its fronds had gone still, all of them, flat against its long head, and its many eyes were open and did not shudder. And the machines gave us no words for a long time because I do not think, for the first time in its ancient life, it had any. It had seen at last. It had been shown the whole scale of what the garden had become. The world entire turned into an answer to it, and it had been shown in the same breath that the answer was choosing to hold. That we could end them, and were not going to. That a people it had once made too soft to want anything had grown hard enough to destroy it, and disciplined enough not to. When it finally spoke, the gentle certainty was gone from the hum. What came through the machines was small and old, and I think for the first time afraid, not of dying, but of being wrong, which for a creature that had been certain for 80,000 years may be the same thing. Why, it hummed, why do you not strike? We came to take you back. We see now that we cannot. You have grown past our hand. By every reckoning of every garden we have ever kept, the stock that grows past the gardener's hand turns on the gardener. We would have, any of us would have. Why do you not? And Adrastenin, old and tired, and standing in front of the thing that had unmade her ancestors, with the power to unmake it in turn, and the 80,000-year right to want to, gave the answer that is now carved into the stone of the Mareth line, the answer my grandchildren learn before they can read, the answer that is the whole of what we became in the long climb out of the warm dark. Because we remember being you, she said. Not you, but what you are. A people so sure it is doing kindness that it cannot hear the thing it is unmaking say no. We were almost that in the warmth you made for us. The wanting you turned down in us when we got it back, the very first thing it wanted was to do to someone else what you did to us. To find a softer people and tend them and be sure it was kindness. That is the thorn, steward, not the wall. The wall is nothing. The wall is just steel. The thorn is the certainty, and you carry it, and we will not. We did not build all this to become gardeners. We built it so that we would never again be garden, and so that we would never ever be tempted to keep one. You may go. Carry that home. Tell the deep gardens what grows here now, and tell them what it chose not to do, and tell them to keep their hands to themselves, because the next people you reach for may not climb out, and the next people after that may not choose to hold. We let them go. That is the end of it, and it is the part the songs get wrong, because there is no glory in it that a song can use. We opened the corridor we had opened, and the veshaal fleet went back up through it slowly, the way it had come down, but not certainly, never again certainly. And the standing fleet watched it out past the crown, and the deep batteries tracked it to the edge of the system, and the wall held its breath for the 11 days it took them to cross back into the dark. And then they were gone, and the sky over the high plain was empty again, and the Mareth line stood as it had stood for 80,000 years, waiting. I went back up to the parapet of Tower 9 when it was over. The wind off the plain was cold, and my old shoulder ached, and the band of the crown was a thin gold line across the daytime sky again, the way the children draw it, the way most of them will never think about. Senna came up and stood beside me, and we did not say anything for a long while, the way watchmen don't. "They'll come back," she said at last. "Won't they? They're kind, maybe not the same ones, but someday." "Maybe," I said, "maybe not. We told them not to, we meant it." I looked out over the plain where the gardener had stood, where an old woman had been offered 80,000 years of revenge and had set it down. But that's not why we keep the watch, and it never was. We don't keep it because they might come. We keep it because we forgot once that we needed to. We keep it so we never forget again what we are, or what we could be turned into, or, and here my voice did the thing it does now when I get to this part, or what we could turn someone else into if we let ourselves believe we were being kind. Senna was quiet. She was young. She had heard the gardener's gentle voice and felt it in her chest, the way we all did, and I think for the first time she understood the reed I had given, the one about the warmth being more dangerous than the wrath. "That's a heavy thing to keep a wall for," she said. "It is," I said. "It's the heaviest thing there is. It's heavier than the guns." I put my old hand on the cold stone of the parapet, the stone my father had stood at and his mother, and back into the dark. But somebody has to hold it, and we found out the hard way a long time ago what happens to a people that lets somebody else hold it for them. So we hold our own. That's the whole of it, girl. That's the whole of the wall. We hold our own, and we don't sleep, and we remember, and we don't become the thing we were waiting for. I have stood on the Mareth line for 41 years. I will not stand on it many more. But the morning the sky filled after 80,000 years of waiting, my people were ready, not because we were stronger than the gardeners, though we were, but because we remembered what we were before they made us soft, and what it cost to climb back, and what we swore in the climbing. We held the wall. We showed them the answer. And then we did the hardest thing a strong people ever does, the thing that is harder than any battle, and that no song has ever quite known how to sing. We let them go home, and we did not follow.